Howdy everybody, Texas Stroke here in Lance's Performance Shop, LoneStarMopars.com. Sunday night, just about 9 o'clock, 86, relatively cool, although it's not something you'd know if you were standing in here with me. So we're going to get this thing started. This is actually something I picked up from Koken USA. It's something that I had wanted to buy from DRPD, and DRPD now officially has this in stock. So I'm going to kind of give you multiple purchase options here. I would recommend DRPD, just in part because you're going to save cash. Now, if you happen to be like northeastern United States, maybe you're better off going direct. You know, it just depends on the urgency of what you're trying to do. But this right here is part number 3776N. Not sure if anyone could read the rest of that, but this will be joined by 3776P and 3776J. Before we dive into those, we've got to get this out of the bag. And this is what we've got. This is long awaited, long anticipated. Finally pulled the trigger on it, and we've got to figure out what we think of it. Now again, this right here, 3776N, that is going to be the knurled handle. Koken technically refers to that as serrated metal. Koken USA's price would be $138.22. DRPD, you're saving a good chunk, comes in just north of $120. Again, we did buy this on a sale, otherwise I would not have done that. But this is kind of the culmination. One of the reasons that we went ahead and brought in all the breaker bars was so I could experience the handles. This was the only, and it's not a great example, like standard Koken handle that I had. I was on that stubby ratchet, which again, you get kind of an idea what to expect, but don't really know. So with the breaker bar deal, we pulled the trigger on that, and between these two I sort of like made my deduction of what I think I would think of this ratchet with a polished handle. That's what Koken is going to have, is the 3776P. So if you hate knurling, or you're just like, man, I would love to have that bare metal handle on this ratchet, wipe that clean, build a handle up there, 3776P. The serrated metal, the knurled handle, is actually the cheapest. Going from DRPD of $121.65, if you step up to the straight bare metal handle, you're looking at $123.70. You would also pay that same price for this style of a handle, which would be their 3776J. So I know a lot of people would want to put P here for plastic or something. P with Koken is going to indicate polished. J, some of the German brands do similar things. Think of like comfort grip. All right, so this ratchet right here, 3776, is available as I purchased it. Knurled handle, that would be in. P for polished, or J for a comfort grip. Lowest price point, you're not saving much. So I mean, if you have a strong preference towards the bare metal handle or the plastic handle, it's like $2, so keep that in mind. It's not like you're getting this for $20 less than you get the comfort grip or something. So kind of a negligible price jump, so I would just go with what you think you would personally like the most. There is one minor difference between these. The heaviest handle, you know, the overall ratchet itself, this is 565 grams, and you're thinking like, okay, yeah, that's probably the lightest one, huh? No, it's the heaviest. Second heaviest, just barely below this at 560 grams, would be the polished handle. Logic there is likely there's just so much more material taken off of this handle in comparison to this. And if you're thinking like, whoa, you must have skewed this, this would be the heaviest. This is actually the lightest, and it's the lightest by a significant margin. It comes in at 510 grams. So 50 grams less than a bare metal handle, 55 grams less than the knurled handle. So some of you may want to equate that into your decision. What that does tell us though, if we were to rip this handle off of this breaker bar, that's what this is by the way, 1/2-inch breaker bar, if we were to rip it off, I believe that you would see this shortly after this point be machined down to a uniform cylindrical diameter, and that would be how that handle goes on. So small insights as to what Koken's doing there. You would think based on my purchases, I would go this route. But here's the deal. This is why I wanted to bring in a breaker bar or a sample ratchet. That's a swivel head ratchet. I call them Rotos. That's my preferred vernacular. I use them like a speed handle, a driver, sort of like this. While this handle could do that, it is nowhere near as fluid because of the design. This is almost set up beautifully for a breaker bar, or breaking something free with your ratchet, or final tightening something with your ratchet. You'll note, you know, this side, it's kind of a little curvaceous here, tapers down, kicks out to kind of the nub, but then on this back side there's that recess. If this was held flat, you're going to have an area here that's like troughed. It's concave, okay, where my finger's kind of making that motion. So this is not cylindrical. It's not just like a chunk of rubbery two-component material that's placed on here. This actually has a contoured shape. I think it's great for the breaker bar. I didn't want to put it on my first Koken swivel head because, again, I'm going to run a swivel head like I'd run this Torx driver. Okay, so that, while it would work, would be a little cumbersome. This, on the other hand, you could spin that beautifully. I wouldn't have any objections to this. However, I'm a sucker for knurling. I love knurling. And in this instance, where this has a little bit of, you know, curvature to it as well, it's nothing that would impede you. You're either spinning back here or spinning up the handle a little. This is consistent. This is uniform. If you have any of Koken's knurlings, you're going to have this same serrated style. And I say serrated because if you look at this, if it wasn't clear sitting on the mat, you've got a knurled section here, but then you've got this break. You've got a knurled section and a break. I believe it's like 6 sides, if I'm not mistaken. Let me try to verify that real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 6 sections. That's going to give you great grip, and you can actually get by having a little bit smoother of a knurling because you're going to run into these landings should you slip, which serves almost as a reinforcement to prevent that from happening. So this was my choice. It just happens to be the heaviest. It just happens to be roughly $2 cheaper. I'm fine with that. So DRPD now officially has these suckers in stock. Again, if you're in the Northeast Ohio, or Northeast US, I should say, Koken USA might be quicker. Where I'm at in Texas, that's like a week plus. It's ridiculous. Anything, like if I get north, this is how I had Ohio in my mind. If it's like not Chicago or in Ohio somewhere, anything farther east and anything farther north, it's like absurd. I mean, we're talking 7 to 10 days type of a transit. California, where DRPD is, it gets to me fast, and I appreciate that. I have a ratchet from Germany, direct from Germany, DHL. This area is probably not DHL's strong suit. That thing got to me faster than I would have seen something from Koken USA. It's not a knock on Koken USA, it's just the logistics. They're located in Massachusetts. Between here and there, I don't know what goes on, but it's ridiculous. We could put stuff on the Oregon Trail, we could throw it on a pigeon's back. There's multiple ways that it would get here quicker, but the means that they ship from that part of the country, it's not just them, it's anything up there. You know, one of you could be there and want to send me a license plate from Maine. It'll take an eternity. I could have one from Japan and Germany before I see yours. It's just the way it is. So proceed accordingly. Again, factor in the price. If it's, again, something you gotta have or really need, consider that. So, to the meat and potatoes of the ratchet. Obviously, I've covered why I did this. We've covered the pricing, covered your options. I guess we're going to kill a little more time because, we'll come back to it. We'll probably close out with this, but you're thinking like, okay, hey, this is going to be sweet. You know, we got a sweet little Koken swivel head. I call them a Roto like you do. Hey, that doesn't quite sound right. That's very tinny, isn't it, right? Almost like an echo chamber. This is 36 tooth Koken. You wouldn't know if I had a 72 tooth Koken here. So most of my stuff is the Z series, right? You can feel the similarities, but the sound is notably different. Again, this is just almost like an echo chamber. And you think like, hey, well, that doesn't really seem like a lot of back drag there or anything. Is that pretty good? It's great. It's really good. The catch is, I don't have anything that I can make a great comparison with this to, because this is 45 tooth. That's right. It's not 36. It's not 72. Certainly not 90, 100, 80, anything in those ranges. It's not 24. It's not 30. It's not 32 or 36. It is 45 teeth. So, 45 teeth, you're thinking like, throw it in the trash. You know, I can get something from Harbor Freight, 72 teeth. You got to think, what is Koken known for, right? There's tons of ratchets that have way more than 72 teeth. This is, again, a 36 tooth iteration, okay? This little guy right here is amazing. And, again, one of Koken's signature things is just the backlash. It's so light, if you will. What I mean by that is if we had a nylon lock nut and a bolt here, I was using, in fact, this ratchet, not this one, but the exact same thing at work Friday. Didn't have access to an airline, so I was using that to run some fasteners in, and let me tell you, it's a situation where if I had, say, a Harbor Freight ratchet, insert other ratchets here, I could start to turn that, and I'm going to have to hold the nut, okay? That's just the way it works. I can kind of get it going, spin the ratchet around, and then it catches, and yep, we got resistance, we can tighten it down. The Koken, one of the things is, it's like you get it on there, and just with the slightest little resistance, the thing starts to turn the fastener. It's a huge deal, because again, that saves me so much effort, so much time. We also have the thing of, if this was truly tight, confined spaces here, and I've got like a framework right here, I'm not going to be able to turn this ratchet, right? We're going to need to be able to have clearance here, but if we don't, what do? We got to go get like some concocted 3-foot extension to get our ratchet clear of an obstruction, right? With this, we're able to maybe, I mean, it might even just be 4 or 5 turns, but we're able to do that, and then we're instantly back, and we can continue to work the fastener in this manner. Whereas you might have something with more impressive tooth count or something, and if I'm trying to swing it down here and it catches once, and I go up one time, even though in theory, on paper, you would think this would lose, this will eradicate the ratchet with superior design sets, if you will, because of the performance aspects of it. So this is kind of a weird deal. This is a 45 tooth. What does a man do with it? What do we think of it? Well, we kind of need to use it to figure that out. Now, the thing that took me back, number one, it came out this way when I first opened it up, and I love the handle. Okay, it is weighty, I'll give her that, but here's the deal. This thing is big. Like, I was not expecting that. I'm used to Koken, especially again buying everything Z series, like, it's compact. This is not. This is more of like an industrial assembly type of a ratchet. Nothing wrong with that, and it would be fantastic. But if you're buying this because, you know, you're working at a super performance specialist shop or something, this might not be what you were thinking it would be if you're familiar with Koken's Z series, right? This is almost great open air, great, you know, space isn't an issue thing, but for anything else, I was just shocked when I saw the sheer size of this thing. Speaking of size, let's go over those specs. Overall length, regardless, knurled, polished, or plastic, it's going to be a length of 280 millimeters. That is what this is. This is probably my most used Koken. So same length. If you've got this ratchet right here, the 280, you're going to know roughly what to expect here. This is significantly lighter than this guy. Now look at the head here. I realize, no, this is not a Roto, it's not a swivel head, but just put this in perspective for you. Like, we could fit 1, 2, what, 2 1/4, 2 1/2 of these, again depending on where you position it. This is a decent sized head. Now some of you are like, oh, you're being too hard on that, it's a swivel head, they're supposed to be that way, give us some comparisons. Okay, we'll do that. I'm gonna start, I've got a Tekton. Okay, this would be the same as like your Pittsburgh, lots of other El Cheapos, just change your handle color and name. Look at that. And you're like, well, the Koken's smaller. The Koken, I can tell, the Koken is smaller, okay? Some of you might notice why now. You're thinking like, well, that Tekton is beefy. Well, that's because this is a 1/2-inch drive, okay? Again, look at this. 1/2-inch Tekton, 1/2-inch Harbor Freight Pittsburgh versus 3/8 Koken. Now you're thinking, well, give us a fair comparison, idiot. Okay. Right there. This would be your 3/8 Tekton, your 3/8 Pittsburgh, right? If we overlap these, they are really, really similar. I think the Tekton is just a little bit, like the yoke on this side, I think is where the overlap would be. If I get this Tekton on top, anvil, well, if we do anvil to anvil, not sure if that's going to convey, but it's noticeably larger with the Koken than the Tekton. And you're thinking like, okay, well, show us something else. Okay. I don't have a Carlyle 3/8. For that, I do apologize, but this is their 1/2-inch. It's going to be slightly more spindy, you know, than your Harbor Freight line. And you're thinking like, well, this is good. This is real good. The Tekton, you know, or the Koken clearly looks to be just a little smaller than that. Again, this is 1/2-inch drive. So you're thinking, show us the 3/8. I can't. I don't have one. I do have 1/4 with the superior blue quick release, significantly smaller, right? Only other Roto here, I do have one that's 1/4 that I could pop out, but this, and you're thinking like, that looks about like the Carlyle. Well, it's the Mac, okay? And it's super similar, but again, if you recall, when I bought the Mac with the intentions of taking it to work, which I've yet to do because I knew I would be filming this video at some point, this is super, super similar. The catch is the Mac is 1/2-inch drive, okay? So this Koken, it's a beefcake. Now we're going to do something that's a little bit more fair here and compare it to a 3/8 drive Roto, okay? We did that with a Tekton. All these others are different sizes. Koken, KTC. Now, KTCs, to be fair, you're like, okay, that's not a fair comparison. Get like a regular size one. Okay, I've got a mid-tier here that I can grab for you. I actually got two because one's going to roll away. You're thinking like, no, that's the same head size, buddy. Get us something better. Okay, well, how about this monster handle here? Okay, let's line these suckers up. Let's line them up. This KTC is going to actually be longer than the Koken. And you're like, okay, well, that'll be a fair comparison. Oh, you say. Now, to be fair, these KTCs, these are all 3/8. They're all the same head. They're just different handle links. We recently completed that setup. This would be my preferred. This is the most used because I've had it the longest. But look at this. This is what you would think of Koken having. However, we've got to get our minds out of the Z-Series gutter. This is not Z-Series. This is just standard old school Koken, okay? That's where I was going to go with this, with the Z-Series. I think, and again, I realize, you know, Roto ratchets aren't for everyone. Some people hate them and don't give them a shot. It's either you love it or you hate it, and if you hate it, a lot of you probably have never used them, okay? People routinely cite like, oh, well, I can, you know, get my extension here and come in at a funky angle, and, you know, I put it against the firewall and got to the back of that BMW. That's great. That's really great. But a way more practical use is this, okay? We come in and we've got a fastener here. You break it free, and then you run this, and you just run the fastener in and out, okay? A lot of times you don't have like a 3/8 of an inch of thread, okay? You don't have a 1/4 inch. It's not, you got a 1/4 20 bolt, let's say, and it's going to hold a thermostat housing, something real thin, real simple. You come in and it's not like you have a 1/2 inch of thread on there, right? It's not a 1/4 20 by half. It's not a 1/4 20 by 3/4 one. It's pretty long bolt, right, for something that simple. You have exhaust manifolds, all right? You don't have a little bolt this long. You've got to have a bolt like this long because it has to pass through the shoulders and get to the engine block, the cylinder head, right? So many examples of that. You rarely have situations. When you do, you typically don't have a hex head fastener, a bolt. You've got a screw, okay? This allows you to so quickly, much more quicker than sitting here like this, you know, with a typical pair head ratchet, flex, fixed, what have you. This allows me to come up and bring the handle 90 degrees, right? We're over here, we broke it free or tightened it. I run it up 90 degrees, and now I can just run this thing in. I don't want to ratchet at all, okay? If I've got 2 inches of thread here, I'm going to spin, 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 spin. I finally run her down, and then we turn in and we start to ratchet and tighten it, okay? Same thing, you break it free, and guess what? I don't want to sit here and ratchet, ratchet, ratchet if I can do this. Okay, another example, maybe you got like an old dude in your shop and you don't know what he's doing half the time, but he seems to get stuff done. Even on things he didn't have factory training for. You might see him with an extension, right? We're going down, think of a thermostat housing, and he sits there, slaps the ratchet, breaks it free, and then while you're sitting there ratcheting, 90 degrees with the extension like this, old man detaches his ratchet and he just spins his extension, and guess what? He gets it out before you. He then breaks he probably breaks 1, breaks 2, runs them out with an extension, and you're over there still ratcheting, trying to get the first bolt out. Okay, ratchets are great, but when you're sitting here and you're turning like this, right, here's where your work's being done, and if I'm sitting here just 1-to-1 direct connect ratio, I will obliterate you every time. I don't care if you have 20 teeth, 90 teeth, 120 teeth, whatever. That's faster, the 1-to-1 coupling, okay? So that, to me, is where rotos shine. It's not necessarily, yes, it's a huge benefit that, yeah, your flex head maybe, can get to this angle here. Some of them are fixed at predetermined positions, and you might not quite get exactly what you want. That's why I prefer a freeform flex head. But yeah, these can get some really weird angles that no other ratchet can. Hopefully it's functional when you get to that position. But the biggest selling point to me is just the 1-to-1 drive. It's like, it turns it into a nut driver basically, but then the catch is, instead of chucking a nut driver across the shop and grabbing your ratchet and socket to finish tightening, you do it with the same tool. Okay. Efficiency, convenience, ease of use, simplicity, all those are the selling points for me that make the roto head fan-frickin-tastic. Again, your mileage may vary. You may use one and hate it. But what I want to bring up here, before we jump in more into this, I think the door is open for Koken to enhance this. I want to use this. I need to use it before we pass final judgment. It's just been sitting in the box. It's never even had a socket on it, as best I remember. But what I'm getting at is, as much as I complain about the Z-Series handle being thin, right, like too thin, especially quarter drive, I tell you, I understand why they do it. That's their Z-Series way. They want to make it compact. They want to make it sleek. They want to make it fit into the tightest spaces. Do that here. Now, I will tell you right now, if I could put this handle on this ratchet, I would be way happier, okay? But what I'm getting at, this is 45 tooth. It actually seems to perform pretty dadgum good, I'm not gonna lie. But I would love to see this with 72 tooth. I would also love to see Koken do what KTC did and compact this, all right? The biggest complaint I would have on these KTCs, and again, it doesn't matter if I've got a foot or 4 inches or something in the middle of 7 inches long, the biggest problem you've got is like, okay, where can I get to the selector switch? Whoa, slipping and sliding. Let me get my second hand in here. It's basically a two-hand deal. Sometimes I get lucky and I can catch it and, get it to turn, but efficiently, it's better to just grab it, hold it, and turn to change directions, okay? This is huge. This is a big ratchet, all right? If we take a look at this, you'll note, some of you probably already saw this, we got a red arrow. The red arrow is currently pointing at an L. If you're thinking like, okay, what does that mean? Lance? No, sadly, they didn't put my initials on this, but there's an R. Too bad my initials aren't L and an R, right? That would be cool. Here's the deal. You can come in and you can switch like that. It's really kind of, I hate to say this, a two-handed job here as well, but that's because of kind of an added feature. With this KTC, it's very flush minus the 3 ribs, right? You got your fastener in the middle. This is not quick release, so you kind of have to fish around and change your directions, okay? I can't come in here and do jack with that in terms of turning the ratchet. The way Koken set this up, I can do that. Now, the more likely thing for you to do is you've got your socket on here, you're running something down, you can get it started and then come in and ratchet with more force, right? So while this is super nice, it does kind of make it a little bit trickier to actually rotate and change your direction. It's a catch-22 type of thing. Some of you won't care because this will be such a great feature. You're like, man, I wish my insert blank, whether KTC, Snap-on, Vera, what have you, had this, you know, like Thumbwheel thing. And then others of you are like, man, I wish this had something where I could change directions easier. So that's kind of a catch-22 thing. Could be a pro, could be a con. It might be both, depending on what you're trying to do, right? Like, I'm gonna love this unless I want to change directions. Okay. The left and right, that kind of seems trivial. You're like, oh, that's stupid. Well, here's the deal. You know, like this selector switch, we know what that means. Koken's inverted for most everything else. It makes sense to me what Koken did. But if I grab this Tekton, which would be the same as your Pittsburgh, it's actually going to have the L and the R, right? Kind of indicating your direction change. Note, as cheap as these are, that's a one-hand deal for me, okay? Same thing, I think the 3/8 I can do pretty easy. The Carlyle, we'll grab the 1/2 inch. It's got kind of a different tab. Very easy to change, but look, what direction are you going? You don't know. You're going to have to sit here and think about it because it's not labeled, okay? KTCs aren't labeled either. The Mac also doesn't get labeled. However, the Mac, pretty easy to change directions. It's a different setup, almost like a nuclear symbol, right? But very easy to one-hand change. With the Koken, again, if I use that one hand, I'm either turning this or I'm resisting this. To change direction, I basically need to hold the anvil and go. Granted, if we had a socket here, you could just kind of pin the socket and go. Again, pros or cons, depending on what your preference is. The 45 teeth. It's a very, like, this sounds like an old school, you know, 24, 32, 36 range ratchet from back in the day, American and Germany. That's where I have my experience. This, though, even though it sounds like, oh no, you know, this is almost like a low tooth count that you probably like hated because of how sloppy they are, right? Makes you appreciate your 72 tooth modern stuff, even if it's $5 at Harbor Freight. This actually maintains a lot of what you love with Koken. Like, look at this. The ability to just, that's all the play that we've got, and we're catching and going again, okay? So the biggest knock on this one is the size, you know, in terms of Koken Z series, and if you're thinking of automotive stuff, this ratchet has a very large head. Did I give dimensions? I don't know that I did. Right here, end to end, this pin to this pin, this yoke to this yoke, flip a paper football through the uprights, 44 millimeters. All right, that's significant. Again, comparing it to the compact and intentionally designed KTC. If you come in and you take the height basically from here to the top of the selector switch, you're going to be looking at 23.9 millimeters. If you go from the anvil to the top, bottom of the anvil, top of the switch, red directional arrow, you're looking at 34.3. So again, 3/8 versus 3/8, look at that, okay? Now, you can offset some of this because, again, it is a Roto head, but that little KTC is super thin comparatively. Also, yes, the KTC has the tri-Y type of a thing. This has the speed wheel. Take from it what you will. Kind of would be cool, I'm not gonna lie, if the KTC compact head had a thumb wheel. And especially since, like I said, you can really get one-hand direction changes, but sometimes it's a pain in the butt. Okay, especially like if you've got any sort of a fluid on your hand that makes it slippery. See, also oil, antifreeze, transmission fluid, the usuals. It's almost two hands are preferential because of the time savings. One hand is certainly possible, maybe not as fluid as some of the cheaper, bigger ones, but with this, like, it's, you kind of need that second hand, right? So it's very positive, it's very easy to see if you're going left. Just time me out there, but it's very easy to see if we're going left or we're going right. But again, you're kind of going to have to fight that. The trade-off, I've got a thumb wheel. So, tell me what you think about that. Do you prefer the thumb wheel? Do you hate the thumb wheel? What is your take on that one? What I think is that coming in at the price point of $121.65, you can get this three-piece set, right? Tekton, Pittsburgh, pretty much any relabeled thing. Carlyle's prices are nuts now. A couple years back, you could probably get 2, if not 3. Now, I don't know. But as is, you know, like, this probably isn't far off from that price, if not higher, minus the sales, so they're doing fine there. These KTCs are very reasonably priced. If I had to guess just off the top of my head, you could probably get your pick. You could get the shorty and the long one, probably combined for about this price. You could also get any of the two. KTC's biggest knock, aside from kind of the direction change I told you, is it's currently only available in 3/8. Okay? Napros has not released an iteration. KTC, of course, Kyoto Tool Company. Napros is sort of their higher end, right? Same roof, different labeling. There's a chance they make adjustments here, whether it's like a thumb wheel, whether it's easier to change, whether it's higher tooth count plus some other features. Who knows? But 3/8 is kind of the go-to. Now, with this cheap set with Mac, which is also a cheap Taiwanese one, it's not American or anything, with Carlyle, you can get quarter, 3/8, and half. KTC is currently, to the best of my knowledge, only available in 3/8, at least in their compact head that we have here. This Koken, there is no half-inch. And you're like, well, who cares? You know, you don't really use... I actually do use a half-inch a lot, testament to this guy. Okay, there's a reason it's beat up that bad. It's because it's seen a lot of use. But for most people, the Roto shines in 3/8 and quarter. There's no quarter-inch KTC. There is no quarter-inch Koken. There's no half-inch Koken. There's also no Z-Series Koken. I don't know if they've done the research on it, and it doesn't seem fruitful. It doesn't seem like a good return on the investment. They don't sell many of these anyway. I'm not sure how many people really know that Koken even has this, to be honest with you. If you do YouTube search, I did one earlier. I want to say there's like 3 videos. I assume one covered it. Another, I think it was just like some crud on somebody's truck that was available for sale. And then the third video was Koken USA. So unless you literally look for it, and then if you call these Rotos, you're probably never going to find that, because Koken's vernacular is swivel head. But I don't know, you know, they've never expanded this down to quarter or up to half. So you have to think, well, people are either content here, it's just not a hot mover, hot seller. In the Z series, this is something they could hit on. I'd like to see them do flex heads in half-inch first. I might even prefer locking flex heads in the Z series before they do this, but I would love to see Koken make a Z series swivel head ratchet. Even if it's just 3/8, I think it would be worth doing. Now, the thing is, one of the great things about Koken is the prices are great. You know, the prices are very reasonable. If this is $120 for a 45 tooth, what's that going to do price-wise to a swivel head in the Z series? Like, I think they'd be safe under $150. And then, of course, their logic is like, well, that's going to kill sales here. But if you go north of that, you're basically in Snap-on territory. And I don't know, you know, that's... you're getting into a tough pill to swallow. Now, Snap-on was, say, 170-ish, you know, basically right now their 3/8 Synergy 100 tooth roto head is $200. Okay, so I feel confident Koken could undercut them and hit that threshold to just be below Snap-on. However, if this is $170, are people not just going to turn and get the Snap-on with 100 teeth versus 72 teeth? You know, with different color handles versus no color, black and gray, right? That's why I kind of think it would need to be, sadly, I feel like a Z-Series would need to be in this same ballpark, around 120, to really thrive. I think people will buy it and take advantage of the $50 if they could get this for 150. But again, I don't know that Koken can do that if this is already in the 120s. So it might just be a volume thing. You know, maybe they could just do some massive, stupid, oversized production run of Z-Series Rotos, send them out to people, push them, you know, social media, and sort of go for broke and just savings. But again, you kind of have to think like, okay, well, why wouldn't they have done that yet? And there must be some reasoning with their logic as to why we're just going to leave that there and go to town. For all I know, they think like, hey, this is the best Roto on the market. Yeah, who cares? 45 teeth, forget about it. Just go use it. Come back and complain to me then. You know, you're going to be happy. That could be their attitude. I just don't know. I think if you are a Roto head person and maybe you're trying to upgrade from, say, Pittsburgh, Tekton, you know, insert 15 other brands of the cheap ones, this might be a step you take. It's only going to be 3/8 though, so keep that in mind. And can I recommend this 3/8 for double the price of this with a lower tooth count and a massive size? It's going to depend what you're doing, okay? If you are working, you know, and you sit there all day long and you just upgrade modern Supras, brand new Supras, I think you'd be better off with the KTC. It's significantly smaller, right? If you're working, say, industrial, construction, assembly, like big open space frame, you know, like large fasteners, this might be more viable at that point in time. But again, it's also double the price of this, which is nuts. And again, you could get yourself several 3-piece sets of this style. And as much as I like to bag on these, and they're not the greatest, like, they are extremely hard to beat for the prices you can get them at. It's just the way it works. We do have an icon. I'm not going to break it out. It's similar, but this is a big head. That's the takeaway. It's a big, big head. 45 tooth. The biggest selling point here, really, aside from the knurling, is fan-freaking-tastic. I love this handle. I think we made the right choice because, again, I'm not thinking like, oh yeah, I need this at the 17 degree down off of a 90 degree axis to put a 6-inch extension in a semi-deep socket and get my nut grip on there and perfect. No, I'm not really as concerned with that as I am this. And a lot of times I do use it like this, going full vertical. Okay, it doesn't have to be down hole or something. It can sometimes be this simple, just you're running it in. Again, direct drive right there. You get it run in and then boom, tighten. That's the selling point of a Roto to me. It's a beautiful ratchet. The handle is exquisitely crafted. I love the feel of it. It is heavy. It is chonky. It would be a good hammer if you had to go that route. This is very tight, but as you might expect, it is adjustable. Looks like it's going to be a little metric hex, maybe 4, 5, 6 if I had to guess, using my limited metric experience. Thumb wheel's great. You're going to need a second hand basically to change directions, unless you can like somehow do things difficultly that I can't left-handed. All right. I think it's good. It's just very big, it's heavy, and it's pricey. Again, looking at this, knowing that it's not Z-Series, knowing that it's 45 tooth, I wouldn't have been shocked if people assumed this ratchet would cost $60, 50 to 75, maybe 79, 80. You're giving it like the Koken premium there or something. This is 120. If you go through Koken USA, it's 140. Okay. That's an expensive Roto ratchet. Now, that said, 45 teeth, don't discount that because this actually seems pretty legit. That said, it's not quick release. I know you may think, especially if you look at the Carlyles and the Max and everything, like they all have quick release. It does not. The KTC doesn't. The Koken doesn't. That is not quick release. It's simply your directional arrow. So the thumb wheel is a selling point. The handle's a selling point. Everything else is kind of up in the air. Again, I've got to get seat time with this guy before I can pass judgment. I will tell you, in terms of a compact head at a ridiculously good price, these are going to be tough to beat. Okay, these perform significantly better than these do, right? Your Harbor Freight ones. Now, that said, as many times as I try to dethrone those things, like when you factor in the price with sales that are very frequent, a three-piece set, like... You can't really go wrong with those. That's why so many times I recommend, if you're on the fence, if you've never used a Roto, buy those. Just get one, your most used drive size, quart, or whatever. Get one, see if you like Rotos, grow from there, right? This feels really good, the 45 teeth. This one, 72 tooth, it's just so compact. And I don't mean the stubby guy here, I just mean this, the head, the ratchet mechanism. So... this may not be for everyone. Again, depends what you do. If you work in tight confines and you're thinking like, yeah, Roto from Koken would be great. Maybe not this one, because it's massive. I mean, I can't hide that. You get this out of that box and you're like, good grief. You know, I've got this end of a air filter here, right? Look at that. I mean, this is a hammer, like I said, which sort of, again, it kind of makes me think industrial construction type of a thing. So if you're on the fence with this, DRPD's got the lower price. They do frequent sales. If they're out of stock or something, you can check Koken when they have a sale. It's worth bringing in. It's worth trying. It's worth getting more feedback on. Again, it's absurdly tight. I think I might even loosen that thing up a little bit. But again, that's one of the cool things with Rotos. If you aren't happy, if it's too floppy, you can tighten it. If it's too tight, you can loosen it. So that's universal across the board. But I'm excited to use it. I just don't know that at the price point, it's going to be significantly better than El Cheapos. And at double the price and significantly larger, I don't know that it's going to dethrone KTC. So that's where we're at. What I want to know from you, some of you may have this. Some of you might have been like, this is one of your earliest Koken Ratchet purchase. You get something like this and you're like, perfect. And you go and explore the catalog and you got this thing. You've had it for 4, 5, 6 years. What do you think of it? How does it compare, and what are you comparing it to? There's a big difference if you're comparing this to, say, Harbor Freight, Tekton, or KTC, Snap-on, Vera, etc. Tell people what you've got, what you like, pros and cons of each. Again, the end goal is just to help people. I do have this stuff linked. I don't make jack off of that. It's literally just there for your convenience. I guess last thing we'll do, I'll go grab some sockets. I'll check some text messages in the meantime, and we'll wrap this thing up. All right, so glad I looked at that. Apparently, I'm supposed to go look at a car tomorrow with someone, so see how that goes. But I went ahead and I grabbed an assorted socket component here. So what we've got, again, it's 3H drive. So you're thinking like, well, that's nothing too crazy. This is a 13 mil. Look at the back plate here, this black area with a step in to get to this socket. That means if we're having to use gripping the socket to change directions, if we're trying to spin this, you can't. This is a huge head. That's where this is awesome, okay? But that is quite the reach. Now the play, as you'd expect with Koken, is very, very good in terms of there's not any. And right here, this might be a better example, because now if you look at that black ring, you see socket. This is a 15/16, and yes, all the time, all the frickin' time, I run 15/16 on 3/8 drive. That'd be for 5/8 hardware. Particularly this ratchet, again, not this particular one, but the one at work, and that's why it's flopping all the time. It's a heavy, heavy socket, and it's not a Koken socket. It's a lug of a Proto, right? So this, though, is a little bit easier to get to. You know, this is typically what you would do with a swivel head or a roto. Again, the thumb wheel kind of negates that, although if you saw what happened there, that switched directions because my hand was there. So you kind of get into that dicey area where now we're free spinning, now we're going. I'm trying to get my hand out of there. All right. So there could be some issues. You're typically, average person, I'd say you're going to be doing what, like 8 to 19 quarter, 3/8-ish to 3/4, right? Kind of a more modest size range of 3/8 stuff. You also very well with a roto could pair it with an extension, maybe 6+ inches long, sort of just depends what you're trying to do. But ultimately, that's what I can deduce from this video. Putting that in my hand, looking at it, comparing it to what we readily have here, that's what I can show you. That's what I can compare it to. Price points, handles, overall length. I want to also point out that is the only length. The 280 millimeter, that is it. So if you're looking for a stubby, if you're like, man, I love this, if I could get a Roto, it doesn't happen. Okay. If you're thinking like, man, if I could get that just a little bit longer, like that doesn't happen. This is it. They've got one 3/8 drive swivel head. You've got your choice of 3 handles. There's one ratchet mechanism. That's it. So once again, to kind of recap it, if you have this and you use it, not just like sitting in the toolbox, but sitting in the toolbox, is there a reason it's sitting in the toolbox? Is it because it sucks compared to what you have? Is it because you got it and you're just so overwhelmed with the craftsmanship and the execution of it that you couldn't bring yourself to use it? Be honest with people. Similarly, if you have this, you have Snap-on, you have a cheap Pittsburgh, which one do you reach for and why? Are there advantages? Do you think, man, this is a really nice ratchet, but realistically, outside of the thumb wheel, I don't know that I would have not been just as happy having the Pittsburgh iteration, or, you know, the Icon type of a thing. Maybe it's Carlyle, you know, some bargain mid-tier brand versus this. Again, looking at this, knowing it's 45 tooth, not Zeal, you might think like, oh, that's probably going to be like, what, 40 to 70-ish? It's 120 plus, right? So kind of a sharp pill to swallow on that one, but it is a very nice ratchet. I'm excited to use it. I just don't know that it's going to unseat the KTCs for the compactness and the usability, versatility, if you will. I don't know that the price point is going to make me feel good about it versus the cheap stuff. So that's kind of where we're at with it. We got to get some seat time and kind of formulate an opinion. But again, your thoughts and opinions, especially first-hand feedback, are always appreciated. Make sure, again, end goal is just to help people out. But with that said, it is freaking hot in here. I've also got work in the morning. I think I'm going to have to go in early, so I'm just going to get out of here. I thought I'd get to spend all day in the shop today. That did not happen. And I thought, well, I'm going to go at least knock this video out because I've been wanting to get it introduced so I could use the thing, and we've at least accomplished that. So I might honestly ought to take it to work. I'm there, I basically live there, so I would have way more opportunities to use it. Wouldn't be like forced to use. I could be like, oh, I'm gonna use the Koken Roto head now. I said what I said, I mean it, and we just basically have to use it and see what we think. I do stand 100% by my commentary that I would love to see the Z-Series treatment applied to this swivel head. I think it'd be great. But again, I think if Koken thought that that was such a great idea, it probably would have already happened. So maybe these aren't hot movers. Maybe we can change that. Maybe there's like a big run and everyone and their dog starts buying these. Like, what's the best Roto ever? You know, it's like, and then people are honest and they're like, I wish it was a more compact head. I wish it was smaller. I wish it had finer teeth, or, you know, something. Maybe that could, you know, prompt it. I don't know. It's all just speculation and up in the air, but I'm excited to have it. I'm excited to use it. That's going to be the big thing, because that's when we can say like, hey, 45 teeth, who cares? This thing's awesome. And similarly, like, it's an awesome ratchet, but I wish it was smaller, or whatever pros and cons we may find. So I might drop it and it could blow apart. Who knows? We just have to use the thing. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something. What handle would you have picked for the Roto and why? Again, I kind of think we nailed it with the serrated metal or knurled handle. I wouldn't object at all to this. Just when I have knurling as an option and it's $2 cheaper, I'm going to cash in. Plastic handle, I could see some people liking it. Again, for me, it's just the spinning, you know, the driving, direct coupling that I frown upon that versus one of these two options. So that's all I got for you. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. If you have not subscribed, I encourage you to do that. If you do that, you grab your Koken Swivel Head Ratchet and your choice of 3 handles. You jump your charger across the creek, you nail the landing. YouTube just might notify you we got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. With that said, I hope you enjoyed. Most importantly, I hope I catch you back here for more action from the shop.